The Giant Day Gecko is a gecko species out of Madagascar that's known for its striking appearance and its beautiful and its active personality.
Active. Yeah, bold.
The Giant Day Gecko is a beautiful species from Madagascar that is known for its striking appearance and its active personality.
And today we're going to be discussing how to keep these guys happy and healthy.
So the Giant Day Gecko, also known as Philsuba grandis, their scientific name, is an arboreal species of lizard that is obviously going to inhabit most of the canopy in Madagascar. So what that means, basically, you want to have an enclosure that is taller rather than wider. You want plenty of room for them to climb. And you want to make sure that you also have the proper set of branches and foliage for the animal to feel safe and to be able to climb around and do everything it needs to be happy and healthy. Now, when it comes to the setup, we have them here in screen enclosures because we are in South Florida and we could keep them outside pretty much year round. There's only a couple days out of the year that it gets really cold where we have to put them in, but for the most part, we could keep them outside and they absolutely thrive here because the weather, you know, it's a subtropical climate that they love and that's where they're gonna thrive. You wanna make sure that they get a warm hot spot of about 85 to 90 degrees and the rest of the enclosure and the ambient temperature could be the low 80s or even high 70s. That's perfectly fine. Now these guys will need two types of lighting systems, one for heat and one for UVB. The heat bulb is going to provide a small hotspot on one corner of the enclosure and the UVB bulb is going to give them the proper, what man, what? What is it gonna give them? And the UVB bulb is gonna help them synthesize the calcium and it's gonna make sure they have a healthy and happy growth rate.
When setting up your Giant Day Gecko enclosures, you have many options on how to do it. You could use live plants or fake plants. I like to use live plants because they look fantastic and the day geckos love them. Some of the live plants I like to use are any of these thicker leaf plants as this one. This one's called a dumb cane, but you could also use like birds of paradise type of plants. You could use any thick leaf plants because just like that gecko in there, they love to just stick on it. You could use golden pothos, work amazing too. Umbrella plants work fine, but like I said before, they do love the thicker plants. They do love the thick leaves. They love to lay in there. And then as you can kind of see in this enclosure, we do have a lot of bamboo or PVC tubes. These guys in the wild loved hiding in tree hollows. So this is the same thing that mimics in here. So they'll, a lot of times when they sleep, they like to go in there, hang out in there. They also love to lay eggs in there. So a lot of times when we're collecting eggs, we find them in the bamboo, in the PVC tubes. And when we're housing them outdoors, I actually like to keep a bare bottom. I don't like to use substrate for them outside because the humidity is still good, but when you have substrate outside, it retains a lot of water, and a lot of times what you get is this just soaked substrate, and you don't want them to be completely wet all the time because that can lead to higher chances of bacterial infections, skin infections. So I actually found it a lot better when I'm keeping them outside to keep the bottom bare. But when I'm keeping them inside, any type of substrate that's good for maintaining humidity like coconut fiber, moss, mulch, any of that stuff works great. You could do a mixture of all of them and that works fantastic. These guys don't really need like floor hides like a leopard gecko because they love tree hollow, so you're gonna want the PVC tubes, the bamboo, anything like that that mimics a tree hollow. When keeping them inside, it's very important to mimic the natural light cycle that's going on in your area. So when we keep them inside during the summer, we like to keep them in about a 12-hour light cycle. So that means 12 hours the light is on, the heat and UVB, 12 hours it's off. During the winter times, we reduce that to around 8 hours. So we work with it like that. With keeping them outdoors, obviously we do not have to worry about that because the sun does that for us.
Now, if you're keeping Giant Day Geckos indoors, the best way to go about it is to keep them in a glass enclosure. Typically, a 24 by 24 by 36 enclosure is more than enough for one of these guys or even a pair. But when you're keeping them outside in a screen enclosure, the dimensions still apply. The reason why we keep them in screen is so the sun doesn't bake them when they're in the glass enclosure. But inside, the glass is actually going to help maintain the higher humidity levels that they're going to need. Here in Florida, we have a humidity of about 75 to 80% pretty much year round, and it's perfect for them. Too low humidity is going to cause shedding problems, and it's just going to dehydrate them quick. Giant day geckos have a varied diet. They could eat gecko diet just like this, or they could also eat insects. Now, in the wild, they're probably eating more insects than gecko diet. They will also eat a lot of different fruits and nectars that they find. So we like to feed them once a week. We'll give them some of the gecko diet, and twice a week we'll give them insects.
life-giving water. Every animal on this planet in some form needs water. Day geckos are no exception. These guys come from a rainforest, so they do actually need more water than a normal animal. A couple ways you can give these guys water is from misting. Here for all of our outdoor animals, we have a misting system, so it mists a couple times a day for a few minutes. Inside, you can also mist. You can set up a misting system or a hand mist. You're gonna want to mist these guys pretty heavily, at least once a day. They do like the water, it's good. They'll drink off the walls, off the leaves, and the humidity is good for their skin. If it's too dry, they're gonna have shedding issues and can cause a lot of problems down the road. Also, if it's too humid or too wet, they can also cause bacterial infections and different issues on itself. These guys do need some dry periods as well, so you don't want it soaking wet. It's not an amphibian. You do just want to give it like 1 or 2 heavy mists a day. You can include a water dish with these day geckos. They don't always drink from it, but if they ever need it, they will have it available.
Now, giant day geckos isn't a species that I would recommend for handling. If you want a gecko that you could take out and play with, this is not the right gecko for you. These guys actually have a very, very delicate skin that could tear, and that's actually their form of defense. Sometimes if you hold them too loosely, they could just twist, tear, and they'll leave their skin behind and just run away. This way, they can actually just escape a predator and they will actually regenerate their skin pretty quickly. Now, giant day geckos can be tamed down, but for the most part, this is not an animal that you're gonna wanna handle. I've seen a lot of people, I've even done it myself, where if you move slow enough and if you get the gecko to trust you enough, you could actually get it out on your hand, but it's always a little bit sketchy because they're very quick and at any moment they could just jump off, run up a tree, and you'll never see it again. So for that reason, this is not a species that I would recommend for people that are trying to hold them. The reason they're called giant day geckos is because they are the largest species of day geckos known. So these guys will actually get anywhere from 10 to 12 inches, and that's about their max size.
These guys are also very affordable, starting at about $40 to $50, and the price goes up depending on size, age, sex, morph. Some of the higher red ones, you're gonna look about like $100. So even then, gorgeous animals, but not the most expensive.
All right, guys, so that wraps up the video. If you...
Wisdom never talked about lifespan, right? I feel like they just slapped that on like everything.
Like
It's a gecko, 10 to 15. Giant day geckos have a lifespan of about 10 to 15 years. Cool.
All right, guys, that wraps up this video. If you...
Do what, man? If you like our stuff, you want to follow us, we have all the social media platforms: TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram.
Or if you want to get a giant day gecko.
Everything, you know, check us out. Everything is Tiki's Geckos, all the names, so check us out. We love you guys. Thanks for watching.